Good afternoon, this is Brian. Today is Monday, March 20th, 2023, and I'm here at Dictionary Hill Open Space Preserve, and I want to get into a spotlight on plants video today. Today we're going to take a look at this one really cool, odd-looking annual, herbaceous annual plant. And what I am talking about is common miner's lettuce. This is Claytonia perfoliata. So let's get a few pictures in, get a close-up, and then I can start talking about this beauty. So this plant, common miner's lettuce, is an herbaceous annual. In other words, the plant goes through its whole life cycle in one growing season, then completely dies, and relies on seeds produced every year to keep the population going. So it's an annual herbaceous plant in the Montiaceae family. So what we have here is a plant with polymorphous leaves. In other words, leaves that have different shapes, depending on what part of the plant we're looking at. So what we have here is a plant that has a couple different subspecies. So I'm going to go into that and go into specifically what subspecies we are seeing here. But as general, the miner's lettuce has lower leaves that are kind of deltate shaped. See here. The lower leaves at the basal part of the plant, or the base of the plant. That's what basal means. Not the herb basil. But the basal leaves are kind of triangular, kind of round-edged. And then as you go up the stem where the flowers occur, then you're going to have this one set of leaves that encircles the entire stem, as you can see here. So the upper leaves encircle the stem all around it. So what we have here, again, polymorphous leaves, depending on what part of the plant it is. And then we get these little white 5-petal flowers at the top of the little cups. I'm going to call these leaf cups. That's what the name perfoliata means. Leaves all around, basically refers to the leaves all around the stem. So it's quite fleshy, and again, once the growing season is done, in other words, we're getting later into spring when it's drying out, it's going to be the end of this plant's growing season. It will set seeds will fall into the soil, and the plant will die, and then the seeds will come up next spring. So it needs to form seeds every year because it's an annual. So, like I said, the plant's a little on the fleshy side. It's kind of bushy, kind of round in profile. The leaves and stems all come up from a central root system, as you can see here. So, I'm trying to see if any of these flowers are open, because the open flowers, they're really tiny. They're 5-petaled. Maybe a couple of them. They're really small. You really have to get close to really see them. So they're 5-petaled, and they're really tiny. And some of these flowers are open. So why is it called miner's lettuce? Is it a plant you can eat? Well, apparently it gets its name from the miners that would take the leaves and eat them, put them in a salad. You can put them in a salad. I don't know what the full procedure is. I don't know if you're supposed to cook them, but I think you can eat them raw. But this plant is known for having, I believe it has a peppery taste. I never tried it, but this plant was a part of the settlers' diets, and I'm pretty sure the Native Americans would eat these too. That's why you get called miner's lettuce, because you put it in a salad. So what you want to look for, if you're looking for this plant, is you want to look for areas that retain a lot more moisture during the rainy season, as opposed to areas that dry out really quickly. So this plant does occur in quite a few different environments. Technically, where we are is a mesic north-facing slope in coastal sage scrub. Coastal sage scrub is usually one of the driest environments besides the desert. However, even within coastal sage scrub, depending on if you're on a sunny south-facing slope or a shaded north-facing slope, there will definitely be a difference in the environment. On this north-facing slope, the coastal sage scrub is taller, it's lusher, and because there's more moisture. But this plant will also be found under oak woodlands and also chaparral as well. And oak woodlands and chaparral require even more moisture than even the damper side of coastal sage scrub, as we are viewing right here on this pretty luscious north-facing slope. So this plant tends to prefer to be in somewhat shadier locations, typically in the understory of larger shrubs and smaller trees, because this area retains moisture for a longer period of time, allowing this plant to thrive. So even within the driest coastal sage scrub, sometimes you go around a slope or a hill and there will be a slight microclimate. So they like the moisture microclimates of where you have coastal sage scrub, chaparral, and woodland. So this plant's pretty common here in Southern California. Now, I mentioned that there are multiple subspecies of this plant. So the two that I'm aware of would be Claytonia perfoliata, subspecies perfoliata, and Claytonia perfoliata, subspecies mexicana. The one we're looking at here looks to be more of the Claytonia perfoliata, subspecies perfoliata. The leaves tend to be relatively equidistant from where the stem is. So the stem would be here. So the leaf would be relatively equidistant. I mean, not obviously perfectly. Sometimes you'll get a little bit of a point. Sometimes it'll be like a little bit of a little pointy tip. It's not sharp or anything. It's not going to poke you. Sometimes you get a shiny little glossy surface here, and then you get a little tiny tip. Sometimes on one or even both sides of it. Now, subspecies mexicana should have less symmetry in its leaves and less radial symmetry, and have one section be a little wider, more oval than round. And the little tiny horns that sometimes occur on the tips, like that right there, I believe are a little bit more pronounced on subspecies mexicana. So this appears to be a population of Claytonia perfoliata, subspecies perfoliata. And I've seen what I believe were subspecies mexicana. I believe Mission Trails, I think, has both subspecies. But again, it's quite an attractive plant, and if you can get it to come back every year, it would make a pretty good garden plant. As long as you allow it to flower and go to seed, so it can reseed itself every year. Quite a pretty plant. So let me get a couple more pictures of it, and then I'll get back to you, and we'll wrap this up on a good note. All right. So this plant is pretty widespread here in California, especially Southern California. So be on the lookout on the screen for the more specific range of this plant. I've seen it quite a bit here, San Diego County. I've seen it quite a bit in Orange County, and sometimes you'll see them more towards the foothills, and sometimes you'll see them in coastal canyons. I'm in the Spring Valley area of San Diego County, which is a little bit inland, but not extremely far. So when you're hiking along a north-facing slope, when you got a lot of shrubs and a lot of plants all grouped together, and the soil retains moisture longer, keep a lookout for this really cool little plant, Claytonia perfoliata. And again, this one is subspecies perfoliata. And I don't see any subspecies mexicana around here, so I can't really show you that one. But again, when you're looking at Claytonia perfoliata, little more symmetry. And on subspecies mexicana, one side would be a little more oval, it'll be a little bit more oval shape. And one other thing to note, as you notice plants with leaves of very different sizes. So I mentioned the different shapes. The kind of the arrow-shaped leaves at the base of the plant, and those big round stem encircling leaves that hold the inflorescence where the flowers are. But you notice, there are some here with very large stem leaves, as you see here. So these are the ones that are in the moistest, the most moisture-retentive sites. And then you get ones that have much smaller leaves. These ones here are much more stunted. These are the same plant, the same subspecies, same species. So there's quite a bit of polymorphism within populations of this plant, depending on how much moisture is retained in the soil and how hard-packed the soil is. The harder and drier the soil, the smaller the stunt of the plant. The moister locations, probably the ones underneath the shrubs, closer to the bases of the shrubs, you're going to get the larger ones. So quite an interesting set of polymorphism between them. So there you have it. The beautiful miner's lettuce, Claytonia perfoliata, right here from Dictionary Hill Open Space. Thanks for watching my spotlight. I hope this piqued your interest in checking out a pretty cool ephemeral plant when it comes up, does its life cycle in 1 year or one growing season. Check it out. Good old miner's lettuce. And I believe that'll wrap it up for this spotlight. Thanks for watching, and come check out miner's lettuce in an open space park near you.